Hey everyone, it's Jessie from b.a.r.e Flower Farm. I thought today would be a great chance for us to do an early May tour. Now we've been in this house, the house behind me, for just under 2 months, and this field was sod. So 2 weeks into moving into the house, we did rent a sod lifter and we converted this 40 by 90 foot space into flower fields. So I thought now would be a good time for me to show you what's going on at the farm. We were actually just gone for I think it was 6 days. We went to California to visit some family and then just trusted the process. So I have no fencing up. We have a lot of deer pressure around here, and I'll show you some of the mitigation strategies I had to have to prevent the deer from eating the stuff here. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so this is the entire plot. As I said, it's 40 by 90 foot. Technically it's half of the area because I gave myself very, very generous walkways. But yeah, you can see it's a relatively decent sized field, especially for a first year flower farmer. All right, so let's start over here. You can see over here, I actually have sunflowers in the ground. Now I am in zone 6B, which means that my last frost date was technically about a week ago. I read online that Lisa Mason Ziegler had started her sunflowers a little bit earlier and grew them under cover. And that's exactly what I did. I started these actually in soil blocks. So about 5 to 10 days into the soil blocks, I transplanted them into the ground. Now, I think Lisa Mason Ziegler says that you should keep them in the soil blocks for about 2 weeks. The problem was I just didn't have grow lights set up. We're still in the middle of unpacking. So I put them in here, and the benefit of having the row cover wasn't just to help increase the temperature, because I've got this agribond here that is about it's the 4-degree one, meaning that everything underneath here is going to be 4 degrees warmer than what is the ambient temperature. So not only did it help keep it a little bit warmer, but it actually helped avoid the deer from eating it because it was covered. Now there was like a couple of nights where I didn't cover it, and for most of the nights it was fine, but then there was one night where I came in and you can see there is some seedlings that got eaten. So what I did was I just popped the seed right next to it. Obviously pro cut sunflowers are one and done, so once they snip up the top, it's done. But lesson learned there. So I ordered a kit for a deer fence when I was in California. It was always going to happen, but kind of really made us prioritize that. So these are the pro cut sunflowers here, and I actually have another row down here. I direct seeded some sunflowers. You can see some of them are popping up. The seeding wasn't too great because I think that the birds end up eating a lot of the seeds. So again, another lesson learned there. But here's some more pro cut sunflowers over here. And yeah, so hopefully I'll have those up there by mid-June. I put them in around mid-April. They're about 50-60 days. I think the cold probably means that they'll be a little slower to bloom, but hopefully in June I'll have sunflowers. I laugh, but this here is actually the top of a garlic. So we were at a farmer's market and our neighboring vendor gave us some right before we left. And since I couldn't use all of it, I threw it next to the sunflowers and they were untouched. So it might have worked, but I'm just glad that, a seedling like this was untouched. Next, we've got my snapdragons. Now, these are snaps that I started from seed, and I started some of these in like late January. So what I love about starting my own snapdragon is you grow them slow and cold. And what ends up happening is they get really, really thick stems. So if you look at the stem over here, it's so thick and it's very durable to the point where I don't even feel like I really need netting for these snapdragons, but obviously I put it here anyway, and then I'm gonna try to get it to move up a little bit more when these snapdragons grow. But you can see when you grow them slow and cold, like look at this, I didn't even pinch this one. So a lot of them just end up growing side shoots on their own. They look really, really healthy. So I think the ones that are going up are actually the Costa series, and then the ones that have been branching out are actually the Potomacs. So here's another one that branched out. Here's another one. It's pretty insane how they grow so prolifically as snapdragons. Now compare that actually to The snapdragons, here, I'll show you over here. Compare those snapdragons to these snapdragons. So these are actually snapdragons that I got in a plug tray from Farmer Bailey's. They look great, right? But these are probably about 6 weeks old. And you can just see, like, there's a bit of a difference in the stems. The distance between the nodes, meaning between one leaf and the next, is definitely a bit higher, and that's a reflection of just it being grown in the greenhouse a little bit more quickly. I can tell you that at 6 weeks, my snapdragons did not look like this over there. At 6 weeks, my snapdragons probably were about half the size, but they had thicker leaves, they had thicker stems. So a part of it is just, you know, they were probably given a warmer environment here versus for those snapdragons, they were definitely grown in a cooler environment. But, you know, we'll see how those do. And so these are actually Potomac apple blossom. So I've got about 200-ish of those. And then here we've got some Madame Butterfly Ivory. So I bought another 200. It was in a cell tray of 216. Some of them got damaged, but I'll actually show you in a little bit what I did with those damaged tops. So I mentioned I bought some snapdragons from plugs, and some of them got a little bit injured during the shipping process. So the stem actually bent. And what I did was I snipped off the bent piece and I stuck them into water. And this is what you get after rooting them in water for 10 days. No rooting hormone, just water. They were left inside the house while we were gone. Now, it was definitely very warm. I would suspect that the house got to like 70 degrees, but look at all these roots. So I do this for a lot of different types of plants, like basil's a really good one. And I typically don't like to plant them into the dirt until I see roots like this, because now I know they can take up water. If you were to just stick this into the soil without any rooting hormone, it has a less chance of surviving. So once they look like this, I know I can get them in. And snapdragons are workhorses. So, you know, there's probably about 10 or 12 in here, about a dozen that I rooted. And, you know, getting 10 back is a pretty big deal, because I'm going to get many stems off of this. So it's a really good trick to do if you've if you have some injured snapdragons. And you can also do this when you pinch snapdragons to reroot them, and they will grow and flower. So going back here, I said I started these about like 5 months ago. I'm going to show you what they look like when I put them in the ground in late March. Snapdragons are plants that once you put them in the ground, they get a little bit more day length and the temperature warms up a bit, they just take off. So if your snapdragons still look baby-like, you know, even these are a little bit more babyish, don't worry, they will take off. All right, next we have stock. So this is iron stock, and to be honest, I am really struggling with stock. They germinate really, really easily, really, really well. But, you know, this is a healthier looking stock. It's got bigger leaves. But then I've got stock like this. And then, you know, this one's a little bit in between. And then I've got this one where, you know, the leaf color is nice, but it's small. It looks like it's stunted. I have no idea what's going on with this stock. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with it, but I'm not expecting too much out of it. Now, what I also did was back in like late February before we moved, I had anticipated not being able to start too many seeds. So I bought more stock plugs as backup. And these are column stock, which typically flower after cat's stock, as well as the iron stock over there also flower after cats. So they technically should be flowering now, if not soon. Again, I don't know why they're so stunted. I may not even get blooms out of them. So these guys, you know, similar to the stock before that I showed you, I'm really not sure how they're gonna do. They've been in the ground for about, I would say, 10 days, and they look meh. So, you know, one of those plants that I'll just keep my eye on and hopefully I'll get buds out of. But there were, I think, 125 in a tray here. They see them at doubles because it's about a 55% doubles, like double bloom rate. So they put 2 per cell pack. So I technically have like 200 something, 250 in here. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with those. This here is my semi-sad looking status patch. I actually started about 100 status from seed, and this is what grew out, which is fine because status are going to be really, really prolific when they grow. But they kind of struggled for a bit here, and I think it was because I overwatered them. You can see that there are some weeds coming out. You know, I'll try to weed some of it, but I've read that status is supposed to grow fast enough where they should suppress some of the other stuff that's coming up. So hopefully that's what's gonna happen. Another seed I started 100 of ish and probably got about like 30, 40 are the straw flower over here. And man, I accidentally burned the seedlings here because I was using Neptune's Harvest, and I think it might have been a little bit more than what the dosage had said. So if you look over here, there's some healthy ones, like that one's pretty good, but then there's some smaller ones over here, and I think the deer have been trying to eat these. They don't like them because they end up spitting it out. So if I get here early enough, then I'm actually able to put it back in. But you can see here, this is a sign of a fertilizer burn. The tip of it is literally burned. A lesson learned. So I stopped watering these with Neptune's Harvest. But yeah, you know, I'm hoping to get a few good stems out of these. These should also be relatively prolific. So I will do another succession planting soon of those. Last but not least, I have some dahlia tubers in the ground, including some that I started from seed. Deer are not supposed to love dahlias, but apparently they like their leaves because you'll see that some of the leaves are completely gone. Case in point here, this is actually seed from a dinner plate dahlia. We'll see if it actually turns into dinner plate, but this was gorgeous and lush before. And then they ate all of it, which is fine because now these will have side shoots, so it will actually be a bushier plant. I mean, you would have done with pinching anyway. Now, what's really cool is that this is a b.a.r.e tuber that someone sent me, and so that's starting to root, as well as this one over here. So I'm really excited for these. There's a couple more in the ground. You can see I put like a little bit of stakes here and sticks to let me know where they were. But what's really, really cool is this morning, I came out and this is one that I grew from seed, and I think that's a bud. That's crazy. Like, there is a bud in mid-May, obviously super, super short, but at least I'll know what dahlia this is because I grew this one from seed. So I'm super excited to see that. So clearly I just gave you a tour of most of the field, which as you can see is still black with soil. Some of the stuff I have actually direct seeded. So for example, you can see for this row over here, I put some more sunflowers in. So they are starting to germinate. I'm still experimenting with the earthway seeder to see which plate is the best, but I am glad to see germination here because my main lesson that I learned between that other first one when I direct seeded and this one was that you want to have a good enough layer of compost, soil, whatever it is that you're seeding your sunflowers in, for it to be covered quite a bit, because even if they're covered by just a little bit, the birds are going to get to them. And I think I lost a few hundred sunflower seeds back there from that, but lesson learned. So my strategy with this farmer's market that I'm doing is I'm going to do a lot of sunflowers. I think that the ideal price point for these customers is $15 to $20 for a bouquet. And, you know, like, I'm not going to go crazy trying to grow everything. I have some gomphrena. I have some celosia that I seed in the ground. I don't know if they're actually going to survive, but the goal is to do less and get more out of it. And hopefully as I get better at growing from seed, I'm not a very patient person, so growing from seed is kind of hard for me. Then I will try to, you know, make the bouquets a little bit more, I guess, have more variety. So I'm hoping that once the dahlias come in, you know, that will definitely give some variety. I do actually have some zinnias that are very, very small seedling stage, so really hard to see on camera. But my main crops for the summer are zinnias, sunflowers. I have basil as filler, and then snapdragons. So I'm keeping it simple this time around, and I'm hoping I'll get some stock before the end of the spring season. I've got a few more dahlias in here. The deer even got to these. This one they got before, but you know, lots of good offshoot over here, so it's fine. But here's what I'm actually most proud of. This is my ranunculus crate, and this is just a regular bulb crate. So this is what tulips usually come in. We actually worked with a bakery before, so they gave us one of these crates. My husband is mowing, that's why there's a bit of background sound, but there's about 23 ranunculus in here. And I thought I was not going to see the first bud because this looked like this when we left for California about 7 days ago. And now we're just getting to kind of like the peony stage, so still too early to cut. You want, like, there's different philosophies on when you should cut. Some people say, oh, when it opens a little bit more, then you cut it. But I've actually read that if you let it open, close at night, open, close at night, open, close at night, so that cycle 3 times, you'll actually get a bigger head once you cut it, especially if you cut it in the evening. So fortunately, my next market is on Sunday, so I have quite a few blooms here. They're just not gonna make it by Sunday, but they should make it for the market after. I am honestly kind of surprised at how long it takes for a bud to start flowering, but you know, I've never grown ranunculus before, so I'm just really happy that I am getting some blooms because it's starting to get warm. All right, so that's it for me today. Like I said, I have my next market on Sunday, so it should be pretty interesting because I'm gonna have to scrounge for some blooms. I actually have some tulips at the last house that I lived in. Our tenant hasn't moved in yet, and I planted tulips it was late December, and I planted them in a little planter box that I created in the back. There's only 50 of them, but they get only 3 hours of sunlight during the morning because it's in a very shady area. And before we left for California, they started blooming. It was crazy. And the stem length was quite good. So the thing about tulips is that they need at least a 12-week cooling cycle. So they didn't get that 12 weeks. And I'm shocked to see that they got decent stem length. So my husband's actually gonna go over there today. And if some of them are ready, he's gonna pull them for me. So I'm hoping to be able to use some tulips for the farmer's market. But this is my little humble flower farm. I've got some veggie beds in there, but yeah, that's where we are in early May, and hopefully the next time I do this, there's gonna be real blooms out. So hope to see you again, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or even tips for me on my stock. I'll see you next time.